Welcome back to The Bridges Between Us, a podcast from Caring Bridge, sharing real stories from real people navigating health journeys. Stories about caregiving, connection, uncertainty, and the many ways support shows up when life changes unexpectedly. My name is Andy Tiemann. This week I'm here with Tina, author of a newly released book called Suddenly Brave Together, Letters to Caregiving Moms at a Defining Moment in Their Lives. She's also an advocate and the mother of Tiana, also known as Miss T, who was born with trisomy 8 mosaicism, a rare genetic condition. Tina was told her Tiana most likely would not survive. But Tina and Miss T had other plans. This episode of The Bridges Between Us is about how Miss T not only survived, but thrived.
My name is Tina Jackson. I am 55 years old this year, and I feel like I get the year of double grace, which is absolutely amazing. So many great things have been happening for me, and so I am really grateful. I have been in so many different roles, but I feel like everything has led up to who I am today. So, which is absolutely amazing. So I have two daughters, two adult daughters. Miss T or Tiana Jackson, the oldest. We call her Miss T. She was born with a genetic rare disease called trisomy 8 mosaicism. That was back in 1995. My goodness. Nothing could have prepared me for her arrival in the way that it happened. So I was scheduled to have a cesarean because she was breech, and the doctors did note that she was having some heart issues, some kidney underdevelopment. But Miss T, being who she is, she decided she's going to come 2 weeks early, and my water broke, and I ended up in delivery. And because of what the doctors had began to screen out that there may have been some issues, they weren't quite sure. Is that when they brought her to my bedside, and I didn't get to hold her, but when they brought me to her bedside, I just kind of skimmed her little toes that were peeking out and counted them. And I looked at her. She was glowing. Her skin was so vibrant and her eyes were so dark. And I just thought, wow, what a beautiful baby. In my mind, she was okay. So they wheeled me into my private room. It seemed like forever, maybe 45 minutes to an hour. And the nurse came in and told us that our baby was not doing well, that she was failure to thrive. Really, what that meant is that she was not feeding. She was not taking in enough nutrition in order to sustain her life. And as a result of that, she would need to be transferred to another hospital that had neonatal care. And so they wheeled her in basically for me to say goodbye to my baby. And I just felt an emptiness. The expectations that I had to have those private moments with my baby, with my family, they didn't exist. And so that was the start of parenthood for me as a mom. I didn't know what to do with that. There was a lot of fear, a lot of confusion. And it's like life had changed suddenly, and that I had a front row seat to somebody else's life that was playing out. So with that cesarean, I really wasn't able to heal properly like I should. But my main goal and focus was to get out of that hospital and get over to my newborn. And when I was discharged, went right over there, and I was shocked, frankly, at what I seen. I was shocked. It looked as though she was having seizures. There was all this tubing around her. She looked really fragile. Miss T, or at that time we called her Tiana, but yes, there was such a disconnect for me as a mom with all of that. You know, you see your baby, you fall in love with them, but it was a real disconnect for me. And so because she was not thriving, a few weeks later, her neonatologist did tell us that she may not live. Let's do some genetic testing. Something else is at play. We really need to figure it out. I remember so clearly as if it was yesterday. It was over 30 years ago. that we were called in to sit in a conference room with a huge table with, of course, doctors, interns. We invited a family friend who was in the medical profession for support, and they shared the news that she was born with that genetic rare disease called trisomy 8 mosaic, and that most likely she would be a vegetable. That was if she lived. My mind just shut down.
You
Down.
talked about, like, almost dissociation, like it was happening to someone else. You were watching someone else's life, which is a natural, probably, reaction, but then you had to engage. What was that like? Needing to heal and cope in your own way, but also needing to really pay attention must have been hard.
Oh, totally. So I was hearing bits and pieces. There wasn't a lot of information they had to offer, except that it was just a bleak prognosis. She just basically would not thrive or survive. I kicked into survival mode. I didn't have time to think about myself in the healing process. I began to think about what can I do to help her. And we had genetic testing going on. And at a certain point in my mind, I decided that if she's not gonna live, I wanted to take her home to love her. I really believed at that time was what she needed was my love. And so they stopped everything. I asked them to stabilize her and for me to take her home.
Mm, how was that?
I tell you, it was a lot of fear at that time because I believe she was in the right place where they could help her. But now, me taking on the responsibility of this fragile child, I was like, I felt inadequate to do so as her new mother. Once I took her home, it was more of a celebration. I was able to care for her the new way that I knew how. There was a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, and I really approached it as such that she was gonna die, that I was taking her home to die. And so the celebration was I finally had my baby home. I can dress and clean her up and put her on what I want. And so I just wanted to those were sacred. That was a real sacred time. I didn't know how much time I had with her. And so I was really in survival mode.
So how at some point she did thrive, right? She turned a corner. So how did you dig her out? How did that happen?
Oh my goodness. So I have a short story as to how I dug out of that fear and to the point of her beginning to thrive. So in right before I took her home, I say I witnessed or I experienced a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of faith amid everything that was happening. There was a day I made the decision that, you know what, I'm exhausted, been through a lot. I'm trying to process a lot, have been at the hospital day in and day out. And so I'm going to sleep in, get some things done around the house, and I will see Tiana later that day, much later. In fact, it turned into midnight. When I walked into her room and I came upon her bedside, I said, Tiana, and she's looking at the ceiling and she looks over at me and then she turns her head away from me. She looks at the wall. She was only 3 weeks old. And I thought, wow, she didn't just dismiss me, did she? And so I quietly called her name again and I said, Tiana. And she turns and looks at me. And then she turns and looks at the wall. I felt as though we were having a nonverbal conversation just between us. There was a connection. We hadn't had that since she had been in the hospital. So that humanized her for me. From that day, that's how she got her name is T. I told her, I said, you are fierce. And today I have so much respect for you because you noticed my absence. And so we're
With
going to
me?
call her Miss T from this day. And I tell you, she is true to her name, Miss T.
Well, tell me about her. What is she like? How do you tell me about her?
So I want to tell you a little bit about Miss T. Miss T, she is someone that socializes very well. She thrives meeting people, getting into your world and finding out who you are, who you love, what you care about. And she has the mind of an elephant, I always say. And we use that to our advantage in our family when she was younger because she can remember anything for as long as it ever happened. Miss T loves people, and you can have a conversation with her today, and 3 months from now, she run into you, and she will say, "How's your daughter?" if you mentioned her, or whatever challenge you may have been going through at that time, she will ask you about it. She genuinely cares about people.
What is her day-to-day like now? I know she's accomplished quite a bit, and what is she currently chasing?
All right. So Miss T, she had found the path, the American dream of making money. In fact, she's worked enough jobs, earned enough credits to now be entitled to her own Social Security, which is absolutely amazing. And I want to go back a little bit, if that's okay. November of 2021, she moved out of our home into her own home with supports. Now, this is a determined, persistent young lady. She packed her bags in her suitcases, stripped her closet, stripped her drawers. I have pictures to this day, and set her suitcases, her radio, her favorite blanket, her favorite little stuffed animal by the front door. That was her way of communicating to us it was time to go.
And that was what, tail no, that was still COVID? That was still there was a lot going on.
It was. Now, when she first did it, we were early COVID. And I told her, I said, Miss T, I said, I don't think now is the time. But these were things we had been preparing her for. I actually had gotten the paperwork to start the process to transition her into her own home. But that COVID hit. It wasn't the right time. But she would not hear me. And so time kind of took its course with COVID. 21, things started kind of opening up. So we started the process. She was so excited. She did so well. So, November, the week of Thanksgiving, she transitioned to her own home with supports. There was 8 individuals with disabilities living in the home. She thrived. She went to a day program. She did amazing. But by May of 2022, she went into the hospital for a procedure, and she ended up on life support within 40 minutes. It was a long journey. I did not know if she would get back to baseline. There were several episodes where she almost lost her life.
And is that when you dove into Caring Bridge?
So Caring Bridge is near and dear to my heart, and it's something that I will carry with me for a long time. I accessed Caring Bridge when in May of 2022, when Miss T went on life support. We had a large family. My grandmother had 11 kids. I remember when the doctors told me she was on life support, my first thought and my first response was take me to her. I needed to see her. And after I had looked at her and I needed to begin to reach out to family and friends, I thought to myself, I'm not going to go and tell this story again and again. It would just deplete me. There were so many other things I needed to be focused on. And I remember Caring Bridge because I refer Caring Bridge to my families that are associated with Kids Rare Care. And so I immediately made a connection on the internet and within a few minutes created a quick profile and I began to connect friends and families. And in real time, it was unbelievable. In real time, they began to respond to what was going on. Prayers were coming in, comments were coming in, pictures were coming in. We had families create songs. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. And it was actually people were referring other people to Caring Bridge, and I was connecting with people and family I hadn't connected with in years who cared about what we were going through. It was a beautiful exchange, and I could park my thoughts there on that private social platform and not have to worry. I could get up in the middle of the night and journal my thoughts. I could keep some private, or I could open it up publicly to my social group. It was amazing. There was a point in time where I needed to make a critical decision. Miss T, she was on life support. She had the tubing, the ventilator tubing down her throat, and it was irritating her. She was coughing nonstop, 24/7,
Mm.
and we didn't know what could be done. So a tracheostomy was recommended, and that was a scary decision to make. And so I did a little bit of research around that, but I was able also through Caring Bridge to reach out to our friends and family who had knowledge of medical professionals, and they began to call us and to consult with us. We were able to make a decision comfortably, an informed decision to say this is what needed to happen. And we did. And she got better as a result. So,
Okay.
Caring Bridge, my goodness, I refer Caring Bridge to families. It's for so many reasons. You could just be a mom who had a baby and want to celebrate that, and you're busy. You're at a time in your life you're not able to connect with everybody right away. So Caring Bridge is the perfect medium to be able to put that news out there, connect people, get opportunities to have meal trains provided, gifts provided. So it serves a lot of different purposes.
Well, we're so glad Caring Bridge has had such a huge impact on your life, and thank you so much for the glowing endorsement. Let's get back to Miss T. When did she emerge from that traumatic event?
She eventually was discharged from the hospital and went into rehab, but she had to learn how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, how to toilet. It was a challenge. I did not know if she would make it. I just didn't know. Miss T is such a fighter. She's so resilient, and I draw a lot of my strength from her. She's given me courage. She's shown me how to be brave. She really has. I'm so proud of her. But when she was discharged from rehabilitation, she told me she wanted to go to camp. And I thought, wow. I said, "Sister, you're gonna have to show me something." 'Cause I felt I just wasn't prepared to let her go. I was not prepared to let her go live on her own again. I just didn't know if I could trust that.
Yeah.
But she was persistent. She needed to get back out there and be independent, be a self-determined individual, making her own choices. I said, "Okay." She stayed in our home for a while, and eventually she transitioned into a new home, not the same home she left, but a home that was closer to the hospital that could provide her support if she needed it. And she thrived in that home. She was excited. She went to day program, and she lived in that home for about almost 3 years. She got out of that wheelchair. She started walking, talking, socializing, developing more in her skills. February of this year,
Mhm.
she went into a program at Arkansas Children's Hospital, a 9-month internship, which required her to have a full day. She rotated through departments every 10 weeks. So she worked in child development department. She's worked in the linen department. She's never done laundry in my house. But she did it, and I'm so proud of her. And currently, she's working in the rehabilitation department. That was a choice of hers because she went into rehab. She was a recipient of those services years ago. And so she's thriving. She graduates May 19th from this program. Her day with transportation started at 6:45. Her day ended at 3 o'clock. I cannot believe it. This has grown her, transformed her. When I would go and have lunch with her, sometimes she's looking at her watch. She knows she has to be back at a certain time, and that was part of the program to be responsible, to have your own transportation, to go to your breaks, come back from your breaks on time, come back from your lunch, be responsible. She's been amazing. So she'll graduate May 19th, and from there, she'll begin to work with them for about 90 days to find employment.
Wow. That's amazing. How has that felt for you knowing that she is, living her life and you're living yours and suddenly you're not attached the same way? I mean, that must be a big change.
It is a beautiful full circle moment because this is exactly what we set out to accomplish for her to have a fulfilling, self-determined life. And she's doing it. At age 11 or 12, I took her because we're from Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, and we took her to a new home disability organization was opening up new accommodations for people with disabilities. And these were apartments, and I wanted her to see them. I wanted her to begin to think about her future. When I walked into those homes for the first time, I could see Miss T living on her own. She never forgot that. And so now to come back and have a full circle moment. Everything I've been through has made it so worthwhile to see her thriving, living her own life. She loves to travel with me, her family, with her friends. I love it for her. She gets to make her own decisions. And now we get to advocate together. We get to do presentations. We were keynote speakers back in April together. Oh my gosh. That is like at the pinnacle point for me.
Mate, how was that? Tell me about that.
Oh my goodness. So, Miss T and I were chosen to be the keynote speakers at Achieve's Luncheon. They are a disability organization. They have a day program. They have a facility where there are 14 residents living in an intermediary care facility. She was one of those, and she lived there almost 3 years. Miss T, she cracks me up because she's the buddy of the CEO. She's buddies with everybody. It doesn't matter. And she loves when somebody's a boss. She's a boss. She's something in that way. But I asked Miss T, I said, well, what are your thoughts about being the keynote, Miss T? And she just takes it with such stride. She's like, I'm good with it. I said, are you nervous? No. I said, okay. And she does have some barriers to communication. So when people first meet her, it's difficult for them to understand what she's saying. So she uses a alternative communication device. And so we used it throughout the presentation. So the CEO, when she asked questions, T and I had already practiced and prepared for the presentation and the responses. And so the CEO, when she asked the question, she would rephrase it or she would go over that same question and even T's answers. Miss T is so matter of fact. Nothing seems to bother her, and she did it like a champ.
Wow. She loves the spotlight, huh?
She loves it, and she knows people are there to see her, and she loves every bit of it.
Well, and you've recently written a book or published a book. Tell me about that.
Yes, so I'm a co-contributing author to the new book called Suddenly Brave Together. And so We Are Brave Together is the organization that sponsored the book, and it was published through Blue Hat Publishing. And so it was a call for 30 mothers, 30 experienced mothers who've been on the journey with their children with medical complexities to share our experiences of walking through the fire and still standing. It is a gift to moms who are new to their own child's medical journeys. And so it's a gift, a resource that all of us wish we would have had early in our journeys. And I think having mentors, I know for me, I had a mentor. I came into a mentor when Miss T was about 6 or 7 years old. I think when I reached out to her, I was desperate. I was isolated. I needed help. I needed someone to sit with me and show me a better way. And so my mentor was her daughter was about 30 years ahead of Miss T. She's passed on now, but through my organization called Kids Rare Care, we do two things really, really well. We now mentor, we use experienced moms to mentor moms who are newer to the journey. And so there's a caregiver mom mentorship initiative that I am wanting to put in my mentor's name to honor her in that way. Suddenly Braid Together debuted on May 1st of this year, and it is a beautiful gift to moms.
It's incredible. Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, what next? Like what's on the horizon for her and for you?
So Miss T, now that she's going to be graduating as of May 19th, I think she wants to take a little bit of a break. And I think she's rightfully earned it. Of course, we're going to celebrate whatever way she wants to. She has been on her own with supports. It'll be 5 years this year, which blows my mind. Where has the time gone? Now, she transitioned, this is huge. She transitioned from the intermediary care facility, the ICF, with Achieve, their residential home, into a host home. So there's a provider with two caregivers in their home. Miss T moved into their home. They are her caregivers and support. This allows her to really exercise her self-determining skills. She gets to really decide to do whatever she wants to do. So her goal is to find sustainable employment. And so her mentors with Arkansas Children's will work with her in the next 90 days to do that. Until then, she's going to visit with me and she's going to visit with family and she's just going to relax a bit.
That is great.
Yes. Now, what's for me? So, Kids Rare Care, I'm the founder. We do two things really well. So, one is the mentorship program with moms, the other is to bridge family engagement with families and organizations. I do disability awareness training and to form partnerships and to bridge the family caregivers, to elevate their voices, to help organizations to understand that the family unit is really should be a team. It should the partnership should be formed for that individual living with that disabling condition. So, doing more training, doing more presentations and speaking around the world, bringing new moms into my mom mentorship program where we are kicking off our first cohort June 1st. So I have my first two mentor moms who are being paired with two mentees. And these moms have children who are in elementary school. So this is the perfect time to be mentored through their child's medical journey. So it is growing. I'm going to get into research. I am actually on the tail end of writing my own solo book from the framework of faith and advocacy.
You're incredible, and you've been busy. Oh my gosh. So tell me about what did you do? Are you going to promote the book, go on like a tour of some kind? Are you, what you mentioned traveling far and wide for speaking.
Yes. So for Suddenly Brave, I'm just waiting for the calls to come in. I think T and I would definitely love to do some presentations together promoting the book. And so I'm definitely I have a speaker agent right now who's working on my behalf to do that for us. And so she's dynamic. But yes, I definitely see us getting out in the world and spreading more because what I'm learning is that yes, it started with our story, but there are 14 to 15 million children living with a rare disease. But I think about the families, the moms behind all of that, the rigid systems and the complex systems that they have to knock on the door to ask for services and to think outside of the box of how to do that. So now our story, it's not just our story, but it's so many other story.
If there's something you could tell to maybe a new mom or someone who's this has just come into their life, I mean, what would you tell them as a first step?
This is what I would tell a new mom who is new to managing her child's medical journey is that you cannot control the diagnosis. You cannot control the labels. You cannot control the conditions. But what you can do is you can influence the journey. I found that out very early on when the diagnosis overshadowed my life. It's something that I wanted to get my arms around, but I couldn't. I was able to begin to break out of that when I joined my daughter's early intervention board to advocate for over 135 families. So I'm influencing the journey. I wasn't so focused on my child, I was helping others. And from there, when I began to homeschool Tiana because she was not thriving in the school system, I resigned from my federal career and I brought her home to homeschool her and her sister. And then she graduated. And again, it's me influencing that journey, making those decisions to help navigate, to help her thrive.
Amazing advice. Thank you, Tina. Yours is a heroic story of love and family and persistence few can fully understand, but the glimpse you gave us today is inspiring and hopeful, so thank you. And to our listeners, if you want to share your story of hope, resilience, or caregiving here on the podcast, send us an email or reach out via the contacts listed on the main page, and we'd love to talk to you next. We'll see you next time.